Good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Dowdy. I am a long-standing parishioner of both Our Lady of the Brook and St. Norbert, so it's a beautiful thing that our parishes have combined to create one Catholic community of Northbrook. I taught religious ed for 12 years. I have two boys who are now very grown, and my oldest is actually 21 on Monday. I can't believe it. But thank you for allowing me to come and share my story. I have been so blessed in so many ways, and hopefully this story will resonate with some of you. So here it is. God is with us. We just need to open our eyes, our hearts, and our minds to Him. My story begins on Friday, December 8th, 1994, a holy day of Mary. I was a newlywed. I was working long hours as a lawyer in a law firm. I was volunteering my time, doing community service. God was in my life, but I fit Him in when it was convenient. After all, as long as I strived to be a good person, wasn't that enough? Let me set the stage. I had spent the entire day doing legal work in a factory in rural Michigan. That means it's like farmland, no cities, no buildings, just a lot of farms. My workday was over, and I was ready to head home. It was snowing quite heavily that time, so before I left the factory, I called my husband, my new husband, we just got married. Because this was the time, folks, for the adults in the room, you know this was the time where the cell phones, you know, the little phones that you have now, they were about this big. They were gigantic, and you carried them in a bag, like a purse. And the bad thing about it was that the cell phones did not work unless you were literally under a tower, like a telephone line, to have a cell tower. So I had one of these silly box phones that didn't work, so I don't really know why I had it, but I had it with me. But because I knew it wasn't going to work, I called my husband and let him know that I was on my way, but I was going to take my time, and it was going to take me some time because of the weather. I drove off the plant, the factory area, which was on a long rural road. So it's a long farm road. And I made my way. I was going into a 6-lane highway. As I approached the highway, I suddenly realized my brakes were not working on the car. And I realized not only were they not working, but I was on ice. I was skating on ice. I was steering into the skid, as the good Midwesterners are taught, and I tried to veer into the ditch to try to not go into the 6-lane highway, but it wasn't working. I was headed straight into 6 lanes of traffic. As I glided into the traffic, my sense of my life, my mortality really hit me, and I immediately turned to prayer. I was completely in God's hands. The car was hit from every direction. It was a game of bumper cars, but in heavy, heavy snow. The car spun and spun and spun, and it finally came to a stop. It was really incredible to me coming to the realization that by the grace of God, I was alive. But not only was I alive, I was completely unharmed. No bruises, no cuts, no scrapes, nothing. God had created a magical force field around me, completely protecting me from harm. Now, for some reason, I reached for that silly, non-functioning cell phone and dialed my husband Bruce. It rang, and miraculously, he answered. I told him what had happened and told him that I was all right. He told me that he was going to find a way to get to me, and I hung up. At this point, it was a complete whiteout. It was a blizzard. I could not see out of the windshield of my car. Suddenly, the passenger door opened and a woman stepped into the car. As I stand here today, I can't tell you what she looked like. The only thing that I can remember is she had long brown hair. But here's what I really do remember. Now remember, it's a blizzard, right? Really cold, tons of snow. She was dressed completely inappropriately for this weather. She had sweatpants on and a sweatshirt, no boots, no coat, no hat, no gloves, nothing. As she sat in the passenger seat, an incredible sense of calm and serenity came over me. She told me, I live across the way and I saw the accident, and she came to tell me that everything was okay, help was on its way. And here's the thing, she assured me that although there were many, many cars involved in this accident, there were absolutely no injuries. No one had been hurt. I came to find out later that that is absolutely what happened. Not one injury. As she continued to comfort me, that ridiculous, that cell phone, it rang. Remember, I'm nowhere in a cell tower, but the phone magically rang, and it was Bruce. He found a ride, and he was on his way. I told him, though, I wasn't alone. I said, there's a woman here with me. And he asked to speak to her, and I handed him the phone. And he had a conversation with her. She told him I was okay, and that everything was going to be fine, and that help was on its way. We hung up. She took my hand one last time. She comforted me and said she needed to go to the other cars. Minutes later, emergency vehicles arrived, firefighters, ambulances, and the firefighter began to pry my car door open. Remember, the car was a complete accordion, so completely smashed. Now, I forgot to tell you this piece. Time was really of the essence because the engine was running, the key was broken in the ignition, so I couldn't turn the engine off, and the airbags hadn't deployed. So there was all these risk factors that were going on. But remember, force field, God created that force field, I was totally fine. He asked me, are there any other passengers in the car? Is there anybody, are you here with someone? And I said, no, but there was a woman. There was a woman who was just with me. She witnessed the whole accident. Now remember, I'm a lawyer, so I thought it was important for him to know there was a witness to the accident so that she could tell him what happened. He gave me a very, very funny look. And then I heard him turn to the colleague behind him, the other firefighter behind him, and he said to him, head injury, she needs to be immobilized. He clearly did not think I was telling the truth. Next thing I know, I'm being wheeled in the hospital emergency room, and I heard the phone at the desk at the emergency room ring. Something told me, I knew it was God telling me that was my husband, Bruce. So I yelled from the gurney, that's my husband, please tell him I'm okay. Sure enough, it was my husband. Minutes later, the doctor came into the room where I was laying, and he said that my family was there. And I said, you must be mistaken, because my family's in Illinois, I don't have family here. He said, no, it's your family. And sure enough, my sister-in-law's parents walked into my room. They just happened to volunteer at that very hospital, and they stayed with me until my husband Bruce arrived. Now the next day, we needed to go back to the car because I had all my work papers and things in the car, and I needed to retrieve them. I needed to take them home. And when we got to the yard, so imagine all these cars smashed everywhere, I got to the car that I was driving, and the car was completely smashed. All the windows were crashed, all the doors were crashed, the passenger door was completely buckled, and I was hit with a wave of emotion. Grace. God was with me spiritually and physically throughout that entire ordeal. Now, at this point, when I saw that car and realized there's no way that anybody could have opened that passenger car door, I knew I had to go back to the scene of the accident. So we drove back to the scene of the accident, and as you can imagine, there was not one house anywhere on that highway. Remember, she said she lived across the road, but there were no houses there. There was a time when I couldn't tell this story without crying, being overcome by the extent of God's love and grace. He was with me at every turn, sending me signs, whether it was the phone, whether it was my angel. He was with me at every juncture. He may have sent me an angel, and I know he sent me an angel, but there is some question. Remember, I said it was a holy day of obligation to Mary, so maybe it was Mary that was with me that day. Ever since that experience, I searched for signs of his grace. A sunbeam peering through a cloud, a simple kindness extended by a stranger, when you offer a friend a cookie or a pretzel, sharing a meal with a friend, signs of God's grace are everywhere. Now, God makes himself known to us by his grace. So I invite all of you to come to know his love and respond to his gift. Now, reflecting on this experience over the past 23 years brings me renewal and the ability to really refocus in times of stress and sadness. I realized that it wasn't enough for me to bring God into my life when it was convenient. We all get caught up in our daily lives. We have homework, we have work, we have all things that we're doing. But throughout all that stress, God needs to be at the center of your life. And God invested in us. He sent us his only son. So we just happen to open our eyes and embrace God. So thank you for letting me share this story with you. Look for the angels. Believe me, they are with you everywhere, and you will find signs of them throughout your entire life. Thank you.